Okay, hello. I'm sorry I can't be here today, but hopefully this video will suffice for my absence. I will be back in school Tuesday, so if you have any questions, you can ask me at that time, or you can always just send me an email today. But we are continuing Lesson 7C today. If you recall, we started Lesson 7C on Friday. And we did the first two examples. So worked examples 7.5 and 7.6. And you were supposed to do some exercises. I don't remember what those are off the top of my head. But you should have those written down. So we're going to do two more examples today. And then the next class period, which is Wednesday, I think it's Wednesday, we're going to finish we're going to do the last example in Lesson 7C. And you'll finish up the exercise. It's kind of a long lesson and a long exercise. It's really important. It's a really important lesson. So here's this worked example. Find the coefficient of x to the fifth power in this expansion. Well, you want to start with the formula. By now, you should be pretty familiar with the binomial theorem. That's the binomial theorem. And before we can work on this right here, we need to get it in a better form. And you'll see in a second what I mean by that. So this is how it's presented. But if this was on your exam, you want to write it like this. This term is x to the negative 1 power. That's going to be very helpful. If you left it in this form, well, if you left this as a fraction, you would probably really not know what to do. You would just be confused and give up, and because there's just no way you could do it. Okay, so let's see. Our A, this is our A. All of this whole thing is our A term. Believe it or not, the whole thing is our A term. And since this is a minus, we have to include that minus with us because if you remember, it's A plus B to the n power. So since there's a minus in the middle, we have to include that. And this whole thing is our B term. And we're keeping an eye on the fact that we have to have x to the fifth power. So kind of keep an eye on that. You don't want to have to do the whole expansion if you don't have to, because again, on the exam, they're anticipating that you're spending the least amount of time on it and not the most amount of time. I'm sorry, this video is crooked. So, didn't quite realize it was so crooked. Anyway, gonna have to make two, I guess. So, anyway, okay, so let's set this thing up. So we have an R. So our R is going to be, well, we don't, not necessarily 5. Let's see. It's x to the fifth power. I don't really know what R is at the moment. Our n is 7. I'm not quite sure what R is because the problem is we have an x here and an x here, so I can't be quite for certain that R is 5. But there's a way around that. And it's times, that's 2x squared to the 7 minus r power, we don't know what r is quite yet, times in your b term, and it's negative x to the negative 1 power to the r power. Now what we're going to do here is, this right here is a power raised to a power. I don't know if you remember, but if you had something like x squared to the third power, that became x to the 2 times 3 power, or x to the 6th power. It's the same thing. You're going to multiply. When you have a power raised to a power, you're going to multiply the two powers together. So let's see. It's 2 times this. So it ends up being I'm going to go ahead and put this actually on the 2 also. I'm going to go on the 2 and the x. So it's 2 to the 7 minus r power times x squared times 7 minus r. We're multiplying. Remember, we're multiplying the powers. Power raised to a power, you're going to multiply. And then times, let's see, this r is going to go on this negative. There's a lot going on. Times negative 1. That's what the negative is. So the r power times, put the r on here. It's x to the negative r power is what it winds up being. Now, since we're worried about having a term with x to the 5th power, for right now, I'm only going to worry about my terms that involve x. Or not my terms, but my objects that involve x. So right now, this one involves x. And this one involves x.
20 years after my thesis, they're talking about what I did my thesis on.
Okay, so those two involve x. So I know that those two, when multiplied together, have to equal x to the 5th power. And that's how I'm going to find my r. So x to the 2 times 7 minus r power times x to the negative r must equal x to the 5th power. I know that because it's telling me my term has x to the 5th power in it. I'm going to run out of space on this page. Oh, wow. Alright, now distribute in here, and you get x to the 14 minus 2r power times x to the negative r equals x to the 5th. And I'm going to need, I already set up the next page for the next example, so I'm going to need to cut that. I forgot how I did this earlier. The way that you select this object and I did it earlier. Copy that one? Maybe? There we go. Now I'll just somehow erase that other one. Anyway, that's not quite what I wanted to do, but to erase that later. Get that out of the way. I'm out of space. Can I just erase that? No, it won't let me. There was a way. I managed to do this earlier with another thing, another video that I did. Uh-oh. That's not good. I hate it when it does that. Ah. No. Ah! Hate that button. I always forget that it means a new page. Anyway, I'll have to figure out how to delete that later. Okay, so we were right here. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this on the next page. because we're out of space. I think that was it. Negative r. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you had like x to the third times x squared, that was x to the 3 plus 2 power, which is x to the 5th. So you have to add the exponents in that situation. So we're going to add the exponents. So we have here is, I'll figure out how to delete this object in a little while, x to the 14th minus 2r plus negative r is equal to x to the 5th power. Well, what that means is that this has to equal 5. Doesn't that make sense? This exponent here must equal 5. So let's do that. So 14 minus 2r, that's actually, I'm going to simplify that, minus 3r equals 5. 9 equals 3r, so r equals 3. And we're not done, it's asking us to find, I think, the entire term. So we had, I think it was 7r, so 7, 3, times, a was, I can't remember anymore. 2x squared to the 7 minus r power. And it was negative x to the negative 1 power to the r, I think this is r, and to the r power. And we simplify, use your calculator to find this. I'm not sure what that is. Let me go grab my calculator. I don't have that book in front of me. Go to math, PRB, NCR. That is 35. To the 4th power times negative 1 to the 3rd power, this is times x to the negative 1 power to the 3rd power. That's what this term is right here. Let's see. 35 times. Now be careful, make sure this 4 has to go on both of those. So it ends up being 2 to the 4th power times x to the 8th power. Remember, you multiply once a power raised to a power. Times negative 1 to the 3rd is negative 1 times, this is x to the negative 3 power. And remember, we should wind up with x to the 5th power if we did something right. 2 to the 4th is 2 to the 3rd is 8, 2 to the 4th is 16. Ooh, 35 times 16. 560. This right here is 560. Need a different color, carrot pink. 560. It's actually going to be negative because of this right here. Times x to the 8th times x to the negative 3 power, and voila. Negative 560 x to the 5th power. So we know we probably did something right because we wound up with the right x term anyway, so that's always a good sign. Equals, equals. There we go. Those were done. we are done. It was a long, difficult problem. It was fairly difficult, but not unmanageable. There's some problems in the exercise just like that. I don't have the book in front of me, but there's some that look just like that. You'll recognize them because they have this fraction right here. That's how you'll recognize them. And before I send the notes to you, I'm going to figure out a way how to, I'm learning how to use this app better, but how to select this thing, right, this box, and delete it. So I'll figure that out before I send them to you. Anyway, the next page is this example. Oops, I just did, made a bobo. Is this example. We're going to do that example so it's a little bit easier. I might just do a second video because I don't think this is going to run out of, the camera only lets me record for like 20 minutes at a time. So I'm going to do a second video for this next worked example. It'll all be on the same notes though, it'll just be a second video for you. So anyway, I will see you on the next video.